Okay, I think it should be working by now. Hi everybody, we're here today with our weekly stream, and Nathaniel is with us. Thank you, Nathaniel, for coming. So
yeah, hello.
yeah, so I think I'll just jump in. So yeah, we're actually testing out like which kind of streams will be more interesting for the audience, and I think we will have a format where we go with devblog and some questions about the program that you will have, Nathaniel. But in between, we will try different formats, and I wanted to try like a format where we take some functionality of Cascadeur and try to like dig in depth and talk about it in all the details. And so for starters, I selected Tween machine and copy tool. I hope we will cover both. They have a lot of similar settings in them. But if we won't have time, maybe we will move some of the talk to the next stream or the stream after the next. So okay, so let's start. And I decided to start with Tween machine. It is a bit easier, and its more sophisticated features are used more rarely. So yeah, let's jump in. I'll just show a really small example that will be okay. Let me cover the really the basic functionality, and then we'll go to the more sophisticated settings. So okay, let's go back and let me select this cube. I think I can actually just select it like this, and I'll probably also show with Ghost how it looks. So I have a timeline with a really simple animation where the cube moves, and now I'll go to this frame. And yeah, by the way, I will be using our internal version. I think it's okay, it should work the same in the version in the early access version. I think we didn't change anything here. Okay, so I'll go here, kind of hide it, and open this Tween machine tool. And so let's look what it does. Okay, so you can, with the Tween machine, you can kind of bring the information you have on this frame closer to some other states. Like by default, you have this previous next option. So if you go to previous, it will blend between the position it has right now, and rotation actually too, and the previous frame. Okay, so do you see my screen? Is everything working now?
Yep.
Super. Then let's jump back to where my computer switched off. So yeah, so okay, that's pretty obvious. I can tween to the next frame and to the previous frame. There's a number of other options, inverse inertia and forward inertia. So, and here there's a bug that was reported I think a couple of times and still not fixed, but we will fix it by the next version. So forward inertia means that the program will calculate like a continuous trajectory based on the two previous frames, and inverse inertia means it will calculate this position based on two next frames, like if the time is going backward. And again, I can blend between the current position of the object and the target position that the tool suggests. And then we have interpolation average. And average just takes this two surrounding frames and calculates the average position. Like this. It actually calculates with some percentage, which is not I don't know, can be a bit counterintuitive, but it works like this because otherwise on the interval it will not be stable. And then you can use the interpolated position. Yeah.
Is there a difference there in terms of, still trying to understand that last one with the average, it averaged the previous and next frame together to kind of give you that center point, and that box then went to that center point. Does sliding to previous versus next matter in that case? Because the two of them, I would think, would average the same.
Yeah, it's just, it's a bug. Actually, interpolation should be written, like instead of previous, it should be written interpolation here and average here.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Yeah, that is just a bug. And so I can get closer to this interpolated position and to the average position.
I see.
Okay. And let me see what I have here in the plans. Yeah, okay. So then probably what I have to cover is like you can see here that the target can also be different. So it can be either current frame or selected frames. So let me okay, I'll just show it on this. I'll show it on this scene. So I can select a number of frames and then switch on selected frames. And now okay, let me go to previous next. And now whenever I edit it, it will be applied to all the frames that are inside the selection, including the borders. So if I go next, it will slide all of them forward or backward. And then suppose I have interpolation, and I might want to affect not only the keyframes, but all the frames in the interpolation. And I can switch to all frames, and now it will affect all of the frames. I don't know, it gives maybe a bit weird result. Maybe I don't know really. Okay, so let's try, and if it goes off again. Okay, let me also. Okay, yeah, no, I have the scenes prepared for the latest version. All right, so. So yeah, I think I've covered the fact that we can work with all frames or keyframes only, and now we can probably just go on to the more sophisticated settings, and those are these modes like global, local, and relative. And then there are also a number of settings here in the advanced Tween machine settings. Okay, but let's start with this modes. That's actually something that allows you to like do a lot of different stuff, but it's really not like, I don't know, not that easy probably. So I wanted just to cover here. Okay, let me switch to mesh mode to just so it's just easy to select. So I have just two frames here, these two cubes, which are which are cubes like mesh, like this one. The second cube that is above is the child of of this one that's below, and I have the sphere here that is just like away, shifted by the z-axis here, and it's moving forward. The cube and the sphere are moving by the x-axis. And so let me now select this cube, and you can see that this cube here is rotating. So okay, so suppose I just go here and okay, okay, and I'll be basically using this tween machine to bring this cube closer to the previous frame, and if I do that in global coordinates, then it just shifts here. I think that's like pretty obvious what it does. If I go to local coordinates, then like the local coordinate system is used, and I can shift here, but you can see that it's also rotating, because here in the previous frame they had the same rotation, both cubes. So once I'm in this frame, and the rotation of this parent cube is it's rotated how much? 45 degrees, about 45 degrees. So if I go to the previous with the tween machine, then it drags the local position here, and the local rotation is also shifted away to what it has been here. And here they're the same, and so now when I drag it, they will be the same again. They have like the same rotation. So okay, that's local rotation, and now we also have relative rotation, and this one is it's basically close to what local was, but you can put like you can make any object the parent object, and for example, I can make this sphere like I can put pivot here on the sphere, and you can see that it will change. It will go to the x-axis, and that's what it was here. And yeah, but yeah, also okay, let's switch this relative and global, and now that it will be more obvious. Now I will put it, and it basically doesn't shift at all, and that's because this cube relative to the sphere had basically the same position. But this that's when we don't take into account the rotation of the sphere. But if we take into account the rotation, we can switch to local here, you can see that the sphere rotated, so it had its x-axis pointing forward here, and here x-axis points to some other direction. And so if I turn local here, then the pivot will be in local mode, and it will be the relative mode of the pivot will be used. And so now it will go, if it was situated with an offset by the z-axis here, it will have the same offset here, so it will move it right here.
Nice.
Yeah, it like I think we'll try after I show on these primitives, we'll try to go to we'll try to go grab a character and check how that works for the character. and it will be maybe like easier to understand how that actually can be used in animation.
So, real quickly, in that particular case, how did it know which objects you want to be essentially the last object selected when you're doing the actual slider? Or like I'm trying to imagine a situation there. I want to tween the cube. So whenever I have relative on, I should essentially select the last. I should make sure the last item in my selection is what should be the relative parent in a sense.
No, when you turn on relative, it is always doing the job relatively to the pivot, and pivot by pivot, yeah, maybe it's like our own definition, but by pivot I mean the coordinate system of the manipulator, and you can set the system of the manipulator to any object by right mouse click.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, it looked like in my mind, it looked like you had selected the sphere somehow as well. That makes a lot of sense. So you right click on what you want to be the relative pivot. Yeah, I see. Thanks.
Yeah. So, okay, maybe I'll just turn on a more sophisticated scene to just kind of show. Okay, I hope. No, the mouse moves, and that means it's not a crash. But it's really slow. Okay. Okay. So, for example, I don't know. What I like about this scene is that I have a sword, and maybe I want this sword to, I don't know, slowly. So suppose I select this point and like okay, I'll fix this point, select this one and drag it. Oh yeah, it has FK turned on. 1 second, I'll have to turn it off. Okay, and drag it here close to the, I don't know, close to the shoulder, and or to here close to the other character. Should have probably rotated the hand as well, but okay, maybe it's a good example actually. Okay, now suppose I want the hand to be situated. I know it's a bit of an artificial example, but sorry, it's kind of hard to actually come up with a like too realistic example. So suppose I now want to this hand to be the same relatively to the sword as it was in the previous frame. So I'll put the pivot here, and I want it to be local. So let's go here, and I'll turn on relative, local, so I will use the local coordinates of the sword, and try to bring it on to the previous frame. And here it goes. Yeah, not very nice, but you can see it's now positioned as it was here against the sword. So now suppose I want this sword to gradually get into this position, and suppose I want it along these 3 frames. So I go with selected frames, and okay, and now I turn off the relative, go to global, and I will move the sword, and now it will kind of slowly turn. Okay, of course it falls out of the hand, which might not be what I want, but it does turn slowly to there. Okay. I didn't change the following frames. Okay. So, and basically what's like, but for what I could use the relative is if suppose like I wanted to, okay, let me cancel all of that. Suppose I want this sword to move along some like there might be some other object, for example, like the enemy character, and I want to do some work for the sword relative to this object, for example, the sword of the enemy, and then I can actually like put the pivot here, and I can always, relative to the sword of the enemy, drag, okay, let me now go with current frame so it will be easier to understand, drag this sword closer to there. I think still has the FK turned on, or why it's not behaving properly. Yeah, if you want to manipulate it like that in global coordinates, you should turn FK. The scene was used with auto pausing, so it had FK on frame turned on. Okay, so yeah, I can maybe, I don't know, go to the next frame and move that. I can actually, yeah, what I can actually do, okay, it looks like a bug because the hands slide away, but let me just then select the hands. I can select them too, and I can now do that. Yeah, but here they don't, they just go to the previous position, but not to the relative previous position, because the pivot is right now it's not here. Where is it? Okay, let me put the pivot here, and now I can drag to the previous position. Okay, so I see it. Okay, they were in contact here, so I do it here. It will drag it like this, like it was in this frame.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
So, okay, maybe a bit of artificial because I'm more like a technical guy, but if you have any questions, Nathaniel, by the way, you can...
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, for me, that makes a lot of sense. I was thrown a little bit because I think in my mind when I see that, the transform gizmo, I still sometimes think, selected objects. I saw that over the sphere. And I didn't realize, because I haven't done much outside of single character animation yet, that you can right click on pivots of any controller. I thought that was something that was just, pivots within the same hierarchy structure or something. So this idea that you can, pick a pivot of any controller is really awesome. I know I've definitely had situations like that in the cinematics that we've done on the Saints Row series, where there are a lot of times vehicle chases or other items where we might be switching characters between locations. We want to get poses, aligning and stuff between those. Having a feature like that would have been really nice. So yeah, that's really some cool stuff you got there.
Yeah. So actually, what I'm not really sure if it's already in the early access version. But even if it's not, it will be in the next version. So what you can also do is you can actually even combine with the right mouse click. You can put your pivot anywhere you want, and with the shift and right mouse click, and it's maybe a bit inconvenient because it hides the manipulators, but if you want, with the shift and right mouse click, you can actually set the rotation of other object. So for example, it's not as obvious. Let me put it here. And for example, I want the pivot to be positioned in this object, but rotated as, for example, I don't know, the leg of this character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why is it? Oh, I'm sorry. It's Control? No, not Control. Control Shift? Yeah, Control Shift. Sorry, it's not Shift. It's Control Shift. Control Shift and right mouse click. So I can set a rotation. It's not very convenient because Shift hides the manipulator, but you can see that I press it and the rotation changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For example, this one. So yeah. So you can play as you want with this pivot, and maybe we can go back to just really fast cover this settings, and this basically means that you can shift separately, like you can shift some of the positions. For example, maybe I wanted to only affect I don't know, the y-axis, and now it will only affect it. So I can go to the previous one, but only on y-axis. It will not touch the x and the z-axis. And you can rotate along some axis, and you can, and this also can be applied for scale. And okay, down here we have this factor. Actually, factor is not used in the Tween machine. It's only used in filters. So you can actually do the same thing as the Tween machine does using the filters. Okay, I don't know where they are. Okay, here, Tween machine. And you can go attract to the previous position, current frame, and you can set it on a shortcut on a hotkey and press it, and will go to the previous position. But we're actually thinking about removing these hotkeys because after we created the slider, like the slider is better anyway. So yeah, you probably don't want to actually use those filters based on the shortcuts. So, but right now they are working. We will probably remove the default shortcuts, and yeah, we will leave this factor anyway, at least for some time. And then we have this relaxation, which here you can select between frame and interpolation relaxation, and they work a bit differently. Okay, let me just open some standard character. Suppose you have a hand like this, and then you have a hand like this, and I'll put an in between. And it's actually one of the ways you can use the Tween machine is to you put a key in between, and then you attract from the previous to the next for some you attract it to some extent. And if I go with global and I just go to the next frame, and you can see how the arm actually bends, and that is because it is simply using like the global coordinates, which go like via straight line between this and this position.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and but here's a difference. If like in interpolation, we use another type of what we call relaxation. So it's basically how like this um, like the equations that constrain the body, how they are calculated on the frame. Everything like affects everything, and that's why if I go to the next one, you can actually see that the shoulder is going down, although like the shoulder has the same position here and here, but the arm starts to push the shoulder. And if I turn on interpolation relaxation, then it will not affect the shoulder, because in interpolation we just push everything away from the center to the child, and so it will look like this. Hard to say how much that actually matters, because of course for a case like this, probably ideal will be just to use local. It will be like better, but there were cases when people wanted like it to behave like IK but in interpolation, so I have this setting here just in case you really want to like apply it.
Does it really have any real impact? Is it mainly just a setting that you would only be concerned with if you're in the global mode, or are there still edge cases where even in local mode the interpolation option will still be visibly different?
No, it won't be different, because when you tween, like the local coordinate system is made in such a way that it actually can't break the constraints. So,
Okay.
for example, for example, for this point, it has a value that like is just an angle of how much it bends along this axis. So it won't break anyway. So it's just the local coordinate system is like it's like the floats, the numbers that make it up, they never break any constraints. It's just how much it is bent here, it is bent here, etc. But local, it's just the positions. And yeah.
I guess the other question I had too regarding those filters you have as far as position scaling, being able to say, I want to just do this tween just on the y-axis or the x-axis. Are those almost like filters I could see that possibly behaving differently if you're in local versus global, or is it like local and global calculate, they say these are the values, and then the last step is to look at the filter and then ignore values that have like X and Z turned off, for example? Like, I guess that's a long-winded way of asking, like, do the filter values, when they're turned, some mixed, settings, do those behave differently in global versus local?
Yeah, they're just like the objects. I think as this is a technical stream, we can go like a bit deeper here. And for example, if I have this cube, okay, let me have this cube that has actually some local and global coordinates that differ, and what it does, what the tool does, and this is the same actually for the copy tool and for the twin machine tool, is that it goes here to this transform. If there's no custom transform, it goes to the transform and it just takes this global data and works with the global data whenever you're in the global mode or the relative mode. Actually the relative, because it calculates relatively to some other pivot, it always works with the global data, because local data is already in some coordinate system, in some custom coordinate system, so it can't use it. It always takes the global data and calculates the coordinates in relative to the pivot in the coordinate system that the pivot is, and then it works with it. But if you have relative switched off and local on, then what it will do is it will take the local position, rotation, and scale. And then this settings here, they apply already on the data level, basically. So if it's rotation, they work work with rotation. If it's position, they work with position. So yeah, they will behave differently, like in local and in global, because like X in local can be Y in global, and vice versa.
Sure, yeah. I see.
Yeah. So yeah, and why I wanted to show this is because actually in the for the points, there is on the points there's a behavior that is like called, I think it's called custom transform. Let me open it. Okay, is it here already? Yeah, custom transform data. And so what it has is it has these two floats, swing and length. Okay, for this point, because it's only the swing here that actually matters. The length is usually constant. It's just that if you stretch the arm out, so the local interpolation will work. We also took the length as a parameter, and yeah, and so these two data, they are just floats and they're not positions. So all of these filters, let's say, how do you work with position, scale, they will not apply in case you like pick local here for the point, because it looks here at the behavior like with what I will work, and it works with this data. And for the global position, because it's positioned, this filter will apply. And yeah, and actually you could want to like there are options here, like I've talked in the previous streams that we have an IK data, for example, for directional points, and it's different from the position and the local angles. It's like a global vector from the base of the point to the top, or from the base of the head here, I don't know, but it's the same in any triangle, to the top. It's just a global vector, and so we could put this global vector to this custom transform, and then the Tween machine would have worked with it. But we didn't, because interpolation already works with it. So yeah, so you can, because okay, we have only two switchers here. Okay, also I think yeah, it works here with this one. It works with direction, but okay, but I don't think that is. But yeah, for the by the way, for this direction controller, maybe like sometimes you would like to go with the relative here, so it just stays, for example, the same as it was here against this points. Okay. And here it was like this, and it will stay the same against this point. So they kind of affect each other, but I think it's still okay to use it this way. What else? I think more or less we've covered it, and okay, let me look at my list. Add in between, smoothing into pose, spacing. Yeah, one thing I asked our animators, what do you usually use Tween machine for? And one of the thing was that basically you use it to I kind of showed it already, but that you can edit the spacing. For example, I'll go with the selected frames here, all frames, and I can kind of shift the spacing to the end and to the start if I want to. So it's one of the ways you could basically use the Tween machine. Okay, so now let's move on to the copy tool. And okay, so first of all, we'll be mostly concentrating on copying like position, rotation, and local position and rotation, other data, like animation data of the objects. There are okay. Now I see that it's a bit strange. There are other types of copying. You can copy. We'll be mostly concentrated on this, like copy paste. This is just copy pasting position rotation data, and you can also paste into interval, and then you can copy and paste intervals, and then you can also copy and paste different timeline data. I think it's pretty obvious how that works. Okay, maybe this copy tracks, not that obvious, but not that hard to. And interval just basically copies the colors and the keys on the interval and paste them. But these ones are more complicated, and I think we will concentrate on them. And okay, what's I think pretty obvious is that I can just copy some position, go to some other frame and paste it, and it will paste that position. And with Ctrl-Alt-V, I can copy and paste into all the frames. So, for example, I copy, I don't know, from here, I press Ctrl-C. Okay, I should probably show it here in the menu. And now I paste it with into interval, and it will just insert this position I copied to the whole interval. And here it wasn't affected. And now let me put different interpolations here, and with copy on interval, copy interval, sorry, I can copy, it will copy all the positions, rotations, and the timeline. And I can now paste it, select some other frames, and paste interval, and it will insert everything that was there, including the interpolation, including the keys, the key values, etc. So that's the different, yeah, so that's how it works. But that's, yeah.
When you did the, when you pasted those in, I noticed you really kind of extended the selection range out to make sure it was like larger than the range you're selecting. Does that matter? Could you have marquee selected or selected a smaller interval range and hit paste, and it still would have pasted the whole thing, or does it clip to the section you have?
It clips
defined
to the section. Like
okay.
This. So it's okay. It ended with a keyframe, so it's just drag it a bit more. But when I paste, so it will paste. Okay. Let me Control Z, and I'll select a bit of it. And now you can see that it's just step interpolation here, although there was some interpolation, but as it didn't have any keyframes, it just at the right we always have step. But if I paste it here, for example, it will put the interpolation that I had here.
I see. Is there a way to do like a paste insert, or like where I, maybe I have this 10-second or 5 seconds of animation, I want to insert it into another place in the timeline, I could probably hit like the plus key and like give myself the space and then paste it and like remove back. But is there a way to just like paste this data in, shifting everything to the right over to make room for it?
No, yeah, you'll have to actually make the room for it.
Okay.
It doesn't work. It actually works like that with the stretching, with frame stretching, but yeah, pasting doesn't work like that.
Okay.
I don't know, no, but yeah, it would be an interesting option, I think. Okay, so what else about copying and pasting? Yeah, pasting can work. Okay, let's actually let me show. So it has settings pretty much like the Tween machine. You can like position, rotate, scale. You can set different options like paste position, not paste position, paste scale, not paste scale. The same with the rotation. And also you have this global, local, relative modes. And you have this factor, so you can paste with a factor and then it will kind of blend in with this factor. And okay, so for me, of course, pasting is easier. So I think it's pretty obvious that, for example, okay, I don't know, I can put, so it's better we don't have burn switching yet, but you can overcome that to some extent with pasting, because suppose I have this katana in the left hand. Okay, so let's just say it's enough in the left hand. So I can select the katana, put the pivot here, turn on local. It's actually synchronized with the pivot here, so you can see when I switch it. Sorry, to open this one, you can see it switches here, and also with the relative, because copying is actually used much more than Tween machine, and that's why we synchronized it with the actual states of the pivot. So you don't have to go into this menu, you can just set it up here. And now I can copy it. Okay, sorry. I can copy it and maybe go to some other frame, and I can just paste it. Okay, I can't paste it because it's not a keyframe. Let me paste it here. And then it will be like positioned as it was in that frame.
So when you do the copy, the settings as far as the mode and the filters do those settings matter at the moment of paste or at the moment of copy or at both moments?
Yeah, really.
Like, can I copy something and then switch my mode and then hit paste and get the expected result?
A really good question. Actually, in the early access version, you have to pay attention when you copy to what mode you have. Like, it will copy the relative coordinates in the mode that you have here in local or global. And that kind of lets you, copy in local and paste in global, but nobody ever used that. So in the next version, it will always copy both in the local and in the global, and then you can like decide on the paste. Whenever you paste, you can like switch it, and it will work differently.
Gotcha. Great.
So yeah. So you can like select it when you're pasting it, and right now I think in the early access you have to select it before you copy. So because there's like only one slot for it, only one slot, like positions, like relative positions and rotations relative to the pivot, and now it will be like two slots inside, relative to the pivot in global, relative to the pivot in local, and based on what you have when you paste, it takes different data.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks. And okay, I think this is pretty understandable. And now we can actually move to something that allows you to work like really differently with pasting, with copying and pasting, and that is interval edit mode. And copying and pasting does work with the interval edit mode. Yeah, but by the way, I think before we go into interval edit mode, let me really quickly, I think, cover copy interval and paste interval and how they work with different tracks, and because that can be confusing. Okay, let me cover this and then we'll go back to the interval edit mode. Suppose I have a number of tracks and I have different interpolation set there, and okay, linear and some other interpolation, and suppose I copy all of it and now I'll open the same model, but I will merge all the tracks. Now I have only one track. So I select the whole model. First of all, if I don't select anything and go and say paste interval, it will say no objects to paste, because it actually pastes like based on objects. And now if I paste, if I select the whole character and paste, you can see that because the tracks are different, it actually merges. So it looks, for each track you have, it looks what objects will now get onto this track, and for each object it knows what was what keys and interpolation it had like in the buffer when you copied. You can see here what I have. So for example, on this 5th frame I have key only in one track, but if there is a key at least on one track for any object that is right now here on this on this track, on the new track where I paste the data, if at least one object had a key, it will set a key. If there were different types of interpolation, it will put this fixed interpolation, which basically means it's like baked data, because it can't set an interpolation that will actually like interpolate as it did before, because different objects have different interpolation. And where interpolation is the same for all the objects, it just puts this type of interpolation. So if it was Bezier here, it will put Bezier. I don't know if that was understandable, Nathaniel.
Yeah, no, that's really slick. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, just wanted to cover it because it's like a complicated part of this copy and paste interval. Yeah, and now we can move on to the interval edit mode. I was actually thinking, I didn't actually test it, but I was actually thinking about using this tracker X walk cycle. That's cycle. Okay. I would prefer some animation where I already have the root motion. But okay, let me just try to create it really quick. So how I do it? probably I'll just okay, select the whole character. Okay, select his leg, I think, and fix the trajectory. And now I'll use interval edit mode. Maybe we'll cover it next time, but it works pretty much the same, and I'll use it right now to just give some root motion to this walking animation. And I tried to get it like, because I understand that here this right leg, it was static, so I looked at the trajectory and shifted it. Yeah, and it actually put interpolation, fixed interpolation. So I'll turn this off so it doesn't put any fixed interpolation now. Again, I move it again, and you can see here that I'm looking at this point here. It has to collapse because the leg actually had a static position there. Okay, it slides a bit. I can fix it a bit more, but I think we'll go with this. And now okay, now let me save it. So I can reopen it. And again with the let me now shift it with the interval edit mode, and here you can see that I activate the interval edit mode, so it affects all the frames now, and I can select an option how I will edit all the frames. For example, I want to rotate the whole interpolation. Yeah, Nathaniel, if you have any questions, please ask right away.
No, not yet. No, I think I know where you're going with this.
So I will just rotate it and shift it. Okay, too bad I don't remember where it ended. Okay, but suppose it ended somewhere here. And one thing I could do, like if I really want something simple and I just want to blend like walking forward and walking sideways, I could copy all of this. I don't have to turn related mode right now. I'll just copy it. I'll go here, and now I'll turn on the interval edit mode. And interval edit mode works like this, like it applies the maximum value at the current frame, and it goes down with the like with the strength with which it applies down to the other side of the selection. Here it will be like the modifier will be like 0, and here it will be like 1 if I select linear or Bezier. And if I put my current frame here, it will go like up to 1 and then down again. And so I can just paste here, and it will kind of blend the animation. The tail is ugly, but otherwise you can see that it kind of works. Not ideally, of course, because it's just blending it, but it does work. And yeah. And actually, what I could do is just copy this tail in local mode. Like, okay, sorry. I can copy this tail from here in the local mode. And just turn off and the interpolated mode and just paste it. And now it will just preserve what it had. Yeah. Of course, no final result, but I just wanted to demonstrate how you can actually blend two animations. And of course you can do it not only like for the whole character, but for any part using the interval edit mode. And what that actually is used a lot for is that suppose you have some ending pose you want to achieve, like okay, we're like Nike is creating fighting games, so we have a fighting games, and suppose you want in all the fighting games, you know, you have to, the character has to go down to the same pose, like the starting pose, and then from that pose it starts the next animation. So we always end in one pose, and what you can do here is actually go with the interval edit mode. You can kind of blend into that given pose. Okay, let me show it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, suppose I want, like, I don't know, a different pose here. And I just wanna, like, okay, take, okay, where will I grab the pose? Let me grab it from here. Okay, I'll have to shift it. I'll have to shift it. But suppose I want to get to this pose, so I can copy it, and now I'm starting to get confused in all this. I think it's longer away, like here. Now I'll copy it, and for the sword to keep in the hand, I'll turn on the FK for the sword, and I'll select everything, deselect the sword, and now suppose I wanted to gradually blend into this pose. So I selected this part, and it will blend into this pose like throughout this interval. By the way, I will turn off this fixed interpolation and change interval, so it doesn't change the frames in between, so they will be still interpolated. And I will turn on interpolation, turn on linear, turn on interpolated mode, turn on linear, and now I will paste it. Okay, I made a mistake there. He was on the other side.
Yeah. Could you have done the copy with relative enabled and selected like the ankle, and then when you do the paste, it would have kept him at the correct position in the new scene when you paste it?
Yeah, I think yes. I think you're correct. So let me paste. But it was facing on the other one.
Sure, yeah, the orientation.
Yeah, but we can turn on local here. But it will, of course, it will bend because of it, but let's do it. Okay. I think it has different rotation. Okay. Okay, let me correct. No, I didn't use this one. Let me correct this one instead. So it's facing here and it's standing here. I can still use the relative, yes. That would be and now I paste it and it kinda blends it, so it like you can see here it's like it was in the original, here it's like blended between what it had, here it blends even more and more, and now okay, I think it's, is it below the ground or what? Yeah, because it was you see, this is because of the relative. It like, because it was seated down here, it pasted and tries to put it under the ground.
I see.
Okay, so let's remove this relative. But you can always like create a cube and like put it any way you want, put it up or down, and it will work. So I will paste into interval, and now it will just gradually blend into it. And actually, sometimes to do this kind of stuff, it's better to use, and there's a difference, whether you paste into interval or you just paste with the interval edit mode enabled. And what it does when you just paste is that it might not be that easy to see the difference, but it's actually, it calculates how much you changed, like every object, how much did it move, and it applies this change over the time. And if you just paste with this, paste into interval, it just blends, like it pastes the same position, but it blends it here, 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 like on every frame. So it kind of works different, and usually you want this simple paste, which is actually more complicated than this simple blend between the poses. So this gives you the blend between the concrete pose, and this kind of calculates how you have to edit the ending pose to reach it, and then applies these differences over the whole interval. Yeah, so yeah, that's basically how you can use copy and paste. Let me see if I've forgotten anything. Okay, blend animations, central edit mode, relative pivot, and relative pivot with interval edit mode. Yeah, but you can combine, so you can do all this copying and pasting with the interval edit mode, with blending, but against some given pivot. So
very cool. A lot of flexibility there with your copy paste options.
Yeah. So you can do a lot of stuff with that, but it's sometimes maybe a bit hard to kind of like invent how you can do that in this concrete situation. So that might be not very easy. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't fix it, and what constraints actually do. And this is like a really temporary application. So if you want to bind something to something and then interpolate, edit this, like work in this local space, then constraints are better. But if it's temporary, which is like a lot of times it's just a temporary action, you just want to blend it, copy and paste it or something, and then this copy pasting tool is much easier, like, and it's much easier to set it up. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that's it for today. By the way, maybe there are any questions from the audience? I think it is said.
No, for this moment.
Okay. Okay, then we can probably finish, and next time maybe we'll go through the questions you'll have, Nathaniel, if they pile up, and do the dev block again. And I think we will try to shorten the dev block part, so like the streams overall get shorter, and I think the dev block part is actually like we'll try to pick only the most interesting stuff.
Sounds great. Thanks for showing all this. A lot of good information in there.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, and guys, if you have any ideas how we could like make the stream better, considering that like I'm more a technical guy, so I can talk about this technical stuff or the questions. I was actually thinking about another like set of topics like we can draw from the. I think Nathaniel, you proposed this the last time, that we could like take the most interesting questions that were in the help chat and kind of answer them like in more detail. That would be really nice too, but maybe there are other ideas which we could do. So yeah, unfortunately I can't animate, but I can tell all about the program. So yeah,
That's half the battle.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming and for the questions, and thank you guys for coming to the stream, watching it, and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.